Today's episode dives deep into the transformative journey of sobriety, including my own, with my amazing guest, the inspiring Casey McGuire Davidson. Get ready to challenge the status quo on alcohol, explore the power of sober self-care, and embrace the freedom of choice. So, grab your non-alcoholic beverage of choice and join me as we embark on this enlightening conversation. Welcome to The Secrets in the Powder Room, where we share stories and open up conversations about all the secrets women are forced to keep out of fear and shame. I'm Louise Bryant, professional certified coach, intuitive eating counsellor, and trauma-informed domestic abuse specialist and survivor. We're here to support you on your healing journey and help you feel like you're not alone. This is not to be a replacement of your own professional medical and or legal advice. This podcast contains adult language and content. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, Casey. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I am so glad to have you here. I'm so grateful for you to come and speak, and welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, Casey McGuire Davidson is a life and sobriety coach and the host of the Top 100 Mental Health podcast, the Hello Someday podcast for sober curious women, with 1.2 million downloads. As an ex-red wine girl who spent 20 years climbing the corporate ladder while holding on tightly to her love of wine, Casey's passionate about helping busy women stop drinking and create the lives they love without alcohol. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, NBC News, and over 70 sobriety, motherhood, mental health and wellness podcasts and publications. Wow, so after that impressive introduction, Casey, is there something you can tell us? Can you tell us a little bit more about how you become a sobriety coach and a little bit more about your backstory?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I always loved to drink. And, since college, I felt like the minute that I went to a party that had a keg, I drank and I was like, this is fantastic. Anything can happen because I was sort of the overachieving, people pleasing, straight A girl. And I loved the idea that I could turn off that kind of hypervigilance and anxiety and spending all my time sort of evaluating what was going on in the room and how I should act. And that for me became kind of a coping strategy. I still did really well at school. I still did really well at work. And I loved drinking to turn off my brain at the end of the night. So I wouldn't think about things that maybe I should have said differently or done differently or whatever it was. And I also thought that it was the start of a great adventure. Like if I was drinking, I couldn't be super responsible and therefore I could have a great story at the end of the night. So that was the appeal to me. And as I went through college and then my early 20s and then, living with my boyfriend, we moved to Seattle from Washington D.C. We lived on a floating home, very sleepless in Seattle with 2 kayaks outside, and that was fantastic, just hanging out with all our couple friends. And then we got married and had lots of dinner parties with all the bottles of wine and then mommy wine culture and business trips. I just sort of changed what I drank depending on the situation, right? Like younger, cocktails in bars, camping, beers, and then, dinner parties with all the wine. And so it started with, a glass or two of wine a night. And then pretty soon over the years, it became a bottle. And I worried about my drinking for years. I sort of went to work hungover, debating like, do I just abuse alcohol or do I really have a problem with it? Because if I just abuse it, then I can stop abusing it. Like in my mind, I just need to make more rules and have more willpower and be more disciplined. And my worst case scenario was stopping drinking completely. But it was very much affecting my mental health. It drove even worse anxiety than I had anyway. Um, Going to work with 2 little kids when I finally stopped. My son was 8, my daughter was 2. Parenting with a hangover is pretty brutal. I just felt so tired and so defensive and so insecure. And I really worried that I was going to screw up my health and my family and my life, and it was going to be my fault. So, after many attempts to take a break, only have 2 drinks, you name it, I hired a sober coach. I had tried going to Alcoholics Anonymous. It was not for me. It helps tons of people. It just, the approach, the labeling, the dogma wasn't what I needed. And so I chose a coach with a very positive and empowering and proactive way of walking away from alcohol as a health and wellness choice that, by the way, is an addictive substance. And that was 8 years ago. I've done a lot of work since then. I've gone back to become a life and sobriety coach. I left corporate. That's my basic story.
Awesome, awesome. So you say that the AA wasn't for you. Is that something that you was a choice of yours? Do you have any friends, or do you know any people that actually find that that is beneficial?
Oh, yeah. I have lots and lots of friends who are members of 12-step programs. And what I think has shifted is the sober curious movement in the last 5 years has exploded. So the first time I tried to stop drinking 11 years ago, my final date I stopped was 8 years ago, if that tells you anything about the process.
Yeah.
11 years ago, there really was almost nothing else. And it was, if you struggle with alcohol, go to AA. And when you go to AA, you sit around in a circle and it's very helpful for community and accountability. And a lot of people love the philosophy in the big book. I didn't. It was written by 2 white Christian men almost 90 years ago. I found it very patriarchal and condescending. That's me. But I have friends who absolutely love it. And also, 8 years ago, the world was just starting to explode with women talking about walking away from alcohol without labeling themselves alcoholics, with podcasts and quit lit books and online programs and sober coaches that help you not drink without sort of declaring that you have a character defect, which I didn't feel like I had.
Yeah, I can totally relate. I mean, I had a similar story. Obviously, the backstory of drinking tends to be quite similar.
Yeah.
So I gave up alcohol in 2019 for 2.5 years. I had been a coach for some years and I was just like, this isn't aligned with my goals or my life's purpose.
Yes.
I'm ready now to give up drinking. Then I moved to a completely different area and I didn't know anyone. I had no friends, no one to judge me for starting again, and my identity changed.
Yes.
And I thought I could reintroduce alcohol and use my intuitive skills. So I thought I could drink intuitively, have a glass or two and stop there. But little did I know how quickly it creeps in. And before I knew it, I was having way over the amount. Like at the weekends, I was starting on Thursday, drinking Friday, ending Sunday, and drinking well over the limits of what is recommended.
Yeah.
I have had conversations with people who are in recovery and are in AA, and they see me as completely different to them. They kind of categorize me and they say that you're not an alcoholic, so you don't need the AA. You can do it without the AA, so therefore you're not an alcoholic, and we need AA in order to stay sober. So, what do you think the difference is between someone who is alcohol dependent and someone who is a quote unquote alcoholic?
I personally don't use the word alcoholic or alcoholism. And I think that anyone who wants to use it, if it helps them, make it black and white and take it off the table and relate to other people who've struggled with the same thing they have, that's awesome. Truly awesome. I have lots of really good friends who use that term and self identify. What I would say is that it is a self identification. It does not actually exist as a medical term, even though lots of doctors use it. In the DSM, the correct phrase is alcohol use disorder or substance use disorder, and it's categorized as mild, moderate, and severe. And pretty much anyone who drinks on any kind of a regular basis falls into that spectrum. alcohol is an addictive substance. So one of the reasons I don't use the term alcoholic, one, it's really been popularized over the last 90 years by Alcoholics Anonymous, and it sort of infiltrated popular culture. I personally think all the alcohol companies love that term because what it does is it says, okay, there are these certain people over there that cannot drink because they're alcoholics, right? They have a disease. All the rest of you, you're fine. If you're not in that category, you're totally fine. Go ahead and just quote unquote drink responsibly, which is hysterical to try to consume an addictive substance responsibly. And so the term itself, if it helps you, great, but there is a lot of stigma associated with it. There also is stigma from having been in the rooms internally. Like I've been in circles where people, I've been genuinely upset and hurt about something that happened in my life. And they'd be like, well, that's your alcoholic brain talking. And I'm like, no, I'm a human being. And this is a normal and natural reaction to this. It has nothing to do with the fact that I became addicted to an addictive substance. So, Alcoholics Anonymous is fantastic for so many reasons. Number one, it's free. You can find it literally everywhere. It gives people tools to celebrate not drinking at all, which for a lot of people is so much easier than moderation. And I have no illusions that alcohol causes real substantial harm both to the individual and the society on a spectrum. I in no way think I should ever drink again. I have zero problems with alcohol right now because I haven't had a drink in 8 years. I could get one, as you said, pretty quick, right? If I go back to drinking. But that's why I don't use it. And I love that so many people are talking about, if you go on TikTok or you go on Instagram or YouTube and you put in the hashtag like sober curious, alcohol free life, any of those terms, sobriety, you will find tons of people talking about walking away from alcohol because it makes them feel horrible, because hangovers are brutal, because they have more energy and better sleep without it. And also, they don't pass out and do things they regret and not be present for their kids. So you can choose how to identify, but I think there is more than one path. And when even doctors or psychiatrists say, well, you're not an alcoholic, first of all, if anyone who speaks to you about being worried about their alcohol consumption, that is so incredibly brave and difficult for them to do, to be dismissed as you're fine, just don't have that fifth glass of wine is crazy. Secondly, some of them will say, oh, you struggle with alcohol, go to AA, where then you're put in this situation where you have a lot of pressure to self-identify and to say all these things that you may or may not believe in. And for many people, they'll go to that, say, well, I don't identify with this, or I'm not like these people, or this isn't how I want to live my life. Therefore, my only option is to go back to drinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And then it is the kind of language around the doctors and stuff that they're using towards us to kind of, and it's a fear as well, isn't it? I went to speak with a therapist, and at the time I was drinking quite a lot, and I was completely honest with how much I was drinking, hoping that they could give me some guidelines of how to cut down or whether I should be quitting. And the advice that came back is don't quit. It's too dangerous for you to quit, but we can't see you unless you cut down your drinking because you're drinking way too much. And at the time I was probably drinking too much. Well, I was definitely drinking too much, but not to an extent of what I would class as a complete, something. I had a friend who was drinking, bottle of vodka and 5 bottles of wine a day, because she
Yeah.
was at that stage of alcoholism, and they were told me not to quit because it's too dangerous for me. And then with that, I quit. I was like, there's no way I'm drinking again. But I had a professional telling me that there's a problem with my
Yeah.
drinking. That was enough for me to go, okay, I'm done.
Here's what I would say. One, if you are worried at all about withdrawals, about shakes, about delirium tremors, it is very dangerous to detox on your own. And you should absolutely go get medically supervised detox. People are used to doing this. You are not alone. It is not the biggest deal in the world. That said, I would also say that therapists and doctors often, unless they specialize, have almost no training in addiction medicine. The people I've talked to who actually chose to go through addictive medicine, it is a elective 6-week course that anyone who started doing this more than a decade ago went through the AA model because that was what there was. And so literally they don't necessarily know the right things to say or the right things to advise you. If they do, you are incredibly lucky. But it really makes me mad when I hear of people going for support to a medical professional and getting really bad advice or harmful advice or dismissive advice. And I hope, with my podcast, with other podcasts, I interview a lot of doctors, a lot of addiction specialists, a lot of therapists. I hope that is changing because so many people struggle with alcohol, and a very, very, very tiny percent of them are what people would classically put into the quote unquote alcoholic category, right? What you see in TV and movies. 90% of them are functioning and moving through life, but doing it in a very painful way. And the biggest drinkers right now are the people in the highest income, highest economic status, and most respected fields of employment. They have the money to do it. They have the luxury to do it. It's seen as a status symbol of I've made it, and it's highly addictive. So during the pandemic, it was really alarming when everybody stayed home and had their kids home. It was an incredibly stressful time. There was sort of no demarcation between day and evening, between the week and the weekends. Among women, binge drinking increased 41% in that first year. And among parents with kids under the age of 5 years old, it increased 323%. I mean, that is staggering. And when you increase drinking that much, it is not as easy as you would want it to be to say, oh, life's back to normal. I'll just stop or go back to what I was doing before.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that I wasn't drinking at that point. I wasn't drinking through lockdown because I know that I would have been in that category. But also, when you went onto TikTok and Instagram, it was kind of cool. It was like comedy, wasn't it? To go, we're drinking, and what's the time? And the children are playing up, so let's have a glass of wine.
Oh, God.
And it was like a totally acceptable and the dumb thing and such an okay thing to do. And everyone was talking about how much they were drinking. And I can so
Yeah.
understand them statistics. I mean, they're shocking, but not surprising.
Yeah. And it's sort of, we've all bought in. I spent 20 years in marketing, and the way that women in particular, but the entire society has been targeted to drink more and more often, and our beliefs about what alcohol does for us, that is not an accident. We have been sort of indoctrinated and conditioned since birth to believe that drinking is a mark of sophistication. It's what empowered women do. It's the way that moms get through the witching hour. Helps us relax. It helps us connect with our partners. It helps us sleep. None of that is true. They pay influencers hundreds and thousands of dollars to make those reels to huge audiences that are relatable to the target women or men they want to reach.
So, what's your view? Obviously, we're talking here about how they glamorise and market alcohol to suit a certain need or to gain certain statistics or viewings. And the gin and tonics in these beautiful glasses with all the beautiful strawberries and these nice champagne glasses. So, what's your view around the sort of non alcoholic versions of these drinks in the same glasses?
I love them. I love them personally, and I recommend them to my clients, and I drink them. Now, I would say if it is triggering to you, if having a non-alcoholic gin and tonic or a non-alcoholic beer or Prosecco or whatever it is makes you want to drink the real thing, stay away from it, right? It is personal to everyone. When I stopped drinking, there really wasn't that available. I mean, there has been an explosion in non-alcoholic options of beverages, and we can talk about why. It's because the alcohol companies are having to do it because the demand is there. And actually, the non-alcoholic sector of alcoholic beverages is the only growing segment of that market, which is, in my opinion, fantastic. I think more options are great. What I think, and I have to give credit to Janie Lee Grace of the Alcohol Free Life podcast. She's in the UK. She talks about keep the ritual, change the ingredients. And I think you do deserve a reward at the end of a long day. You do deserve to go out on a date. You do deserve to have a sophisticated beverage. It's just you can do that without this harmful substance that literally is a toxin to your body, which makes you feel like garbage the next morning and slows your brain function. So you might not remember stuff. My favorite non-alcoholic beer is at Athletic Brewing Company. It is fantastic. There are really incredible non-alcoholic Prosecco's to the point that I had to pick up the bottle 3 times to make sure because it was so good. So my clients say to me, I just want to have a glass of rosé on the deck with my husband. And I'm like, you can do that. Just pick a different rosé, if you love mixing cocktails, there are those options. I love going out to bars and getting a non-alcoholic mojito. It is so good. And again, if it triggers you, don't do it. There are plenty of lovely, lovely drinks that don't include alcohol at all. I used to go out with my kids, on vacation in Mexico, and we would get chocolate milkshakes. For the first time in their lives, they were like, Mom is the coolest, as opposed to being like, I would like a glass of wine and then order 3 and then not want to chill with them. I'd be like, let's get milkshakes and go in the pool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've just come from being away, and it's having that difference. Where we were, there was lots of options for non-alcoholic, alcoholic looking drinks. So we went to one bar and they had the small Prosecco bottles, and I could have a Prosecco glass. And then we came back and went out for our wedding anniversary. And in the bar that we went to, they had no options, nothing. They said, have you got any non-alcoholic drinks? They goes, non-alcoholic beer, a Coke, lemonade. And I don't drink Coke or lemonade or anything like that. So I ended up with a green tea with my meal. It wasn't quite cutting it, I didn't feel like I was out on a
No, it's a bummer, right?
wedding day of 11 years wedding anniversary. So Dry January is becoming like a huge global event. So what do you think is driving the interest in taking the month off of alcohol and the overall sober curious movement?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's really infiltrated popular culture. And it's sort of the chicken and the egg. It's been growing year over year for the past 8 years. And because it's becoming such a thing in the United States, like everyone is covering it. The New York Times, the Today Show, which is our biggest morning show, Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, women's magazines like Women's Health. I saw a story in Vogue UK with the title, Has Everyone Stopped Drinking? And it was this woman, this reporter talking about, fine, I succumb to peer pressure because all my former cocktailers in arms have stopped drinking for ridiculously sensible reasons like their health and their marriage and their career, whatever it is. So tongue in cheek, but this is a thing that people are doing. In the United States, in particular, in the last 2 years, somewhere between a third and a fifth of American adults participated in Dry January. That's a huge amount. 1 out of 3, 1 out of 5. So if you go into the office and you say, oh, I'm thinking of doing Dry January, you will find a lot of company. And also, what I love about it is if you are sober curious or if you are worried about your alcohol intake, it is a time of year where nobody will ask you why you're not drinking. They will be, oh, Dry January. Yeah, I should do that. Or I know this person doing that. Or I would never do that. But it's not like, oh my God, do you have a problem with alcohol? And that is wonderful too. There are a lot of challenges. The bars around me all somehow highlight their zero proof cocktail menus, their articles in the paper about where to go. So it has gone mainstream. In terms of sober curious, Ruby Warrington wrote a book 2010, I believe, or 2012. I'll look up the exact date, called Sober Curious. And it was that term that really popularized that language that has now exploded. And I think it lowers the bar to really exploring what your relationship with alcohol looks like. Even a month away from it in dry January will give you huge perspective on how your body feels when you remove alcohol from it. You will feel less anxiety. You will be more happy. You will have more energy. Your moods will be more regular. Not at first because of the way alcohol impacts your nervous system and withdrawal, but by the end of the month, you will notice a significant difference. And even if you go back to drinking, you will have that information.
Yeah, when I gave up alcohol the first time, it was sober September that I did, and it was just through that I was like, I'm not going back to drinking. And I think having that idea in my head that this isn't forever, I'm just exploring something here and noticing the effects, the sleeping, the way I had more energy. It was, that waking up at the 2, 3 in the morning and not being able to get back to sleep.
Oh, God.
It was just that was gone, and that was enough for me to go, I don't think I'm going to go back. Obviously I did explore, dip my toe back in, but then realized that having that time to be able to just say, but it's not forever, I'm just going to explore this. And I tried in the past, I think I'd done dry Januaries before, but literally like gritting my teeth, when can we drink, and it's just that shift in mindset that really helps, doesn't it, to kind of think, I'm doing this for me, I'm doing this because I want to, not because I should.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is, when you think about doing a period of time without alcohol, I don't think it's helpful at all to think about forever or never again. I think that's too big. I feel like it's like going on a third date with a person you like and somehow deciding that at that moment you either have to marry them or dump them and never see them again, as opposed to being like, I like you. Maybe we should go on vacation. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah, yeah,
next
yeah.
natural step. So I highly suggest 100 days alcohol free because that will bring you through a bunch of ups and downs and give you perspective to look back at the way alcohol was really shrinking your choices and your possibilities and your hobbies and the way you felt physically. If that is too big for you, dry January is a great place to start, or sober October, dry July, sober September, you name it. But I suggest doing it without the idea of my reward at the end of this period of time not drinking is to drink. In that way, you are never shifting your cue craving reward cycle. Instead, use the period as a true period of self care. So I suggest getting what I call a sober treat every day because I was a daily drinker. So having something to look forward to every day and that you can say, this is my reward for not drinking, really shifts your mind to being, this is something I'm doing for yourself. And for me, it was a pedicure on Friday night instead of going to bar. It was sushi dinner on Saturday. I bought myself new running shoes as a sober treat, as sort of a signal. And I ran a 10K for the first time in 6 years when I took a 100-day break from alcohol. Everything from waking up in the morning and having your coffee or your tea in a quiet home without waking up, opening one eye with a hangover and debating how bad your day is going to be. That was me. It was just like, this is beautiful. And then you can just journal the ups and downs. And if you feel good or better at the end of 31 days, I encourage you to get curious and excited about how good you might feel at 50 days, how good you might feel at 2 months. Because what's crazy is we do something, we're like, oh, yeah, actually, I sleep so much better and I have more energy and work is easier and I'm discovering new hobbies. That was great. I'm going to go drink again. And like, but our minds do that because it's everywhere.
I think sometimes you forget the painful side and remember the fun. It's like an abusive relationship, isn't it? You forget about all the bad stuff and just remember and miss the person or miss the drink because it's all the
Yeah.
good times. I mean, my go-to is always to go and meditate, because it's free, it's always available to me. I have my space indoors, and I know sort of like through lockdown, when everyone was all in that high anxiety, my husband would have a glass of wine in the evening, and I'll be like, I'm going to meditate. That is my glass of wine, and I would just go into my
Yeah.
room, play some nice music, light some candles, and just breathe and just have that moment, and that
Yeah.
craving or that feeling of anxiety that you feel can then just dissolve. Because I think you say
Yeah.
like having a daily treat, if you're having a daily drink of wine, doing that self-care, journaling it through, doing something nice for yourself, it's that replacement,
Yeah.
isn't it? That's free, because obviously having buying treats for yourself, which is also very important, because if you're not spending the money on alcohol, then treat yourself. Why
Yeah.
not? But if that's an issue, if you sort of like finding the money for alcohol, sometimes people find that you always live to your means, like, how are we affording all this alcohol, we're spending all this money,
Yeah.
but actually when
Yeah.
you give it up, you might think, well, where is that money? But you're obviously
Yeah.
able to spend it in other ways, which is
Yeah, I mean, I love walks and podcasts that help so many women to really focus on why they're doing this, that this is good. Hearing other women talk about what might change in the future, knowing what to expect, and just moving your body is very, very helpful. Also, I saved $550 in my first month not drinking. And I do recommend, this shouldn't be a period of deprivation and isolation. It really shouldn't, because that's going to say, oh my God, when I'm not drinking, I'm unhappy and this sucks. So identify what your biggest triggers are and do what you can to shift them. So, including like, find a babysitter for a couple hours or go to a gym that has childcare. I had two little kids when I stopped drinking and my husband wasn't around. And I feel like I did need a break and I did need time for myself and I did need to do something. But again, meditation, completely free, walks, podcasts, completely free. There are lots of free online communities you can join where not drinking is celebrated, where people are talking about the benefits. We spend our whole lives romanticizing drinking. Like you said, remembering the highlights and ignoring the lowlights. And I had a lot of lowlights, and shifting that and starting to romanticize alcohol-free life, just noticing the good, that can be powerful too.
What do you think are some good tips for people who are replacing the alcohol with noticing that they're going for the food, notice they're going for the chocolate, notice they're going for the sugar?
First thing I would say is that's very normal for a lot of reasons, and it does not last forever. So it is a distinct period of time. And I'll tell you why. Number one, when I was drinking, I was always like, oh, no sweets for me. I don't have a sweet tooth. I was drinking a bottle of red wine. There is a ridiculous amount of sugar in a lot of alcohol beverages. So the other thing that sugar does is alcohol spikes your dopamine really high, right? You drink it, it spikes your dopamine. Your body wants to stay at a balance. So what happens is your body will suppress your natural level of dopamine, which is your happy hormone, because you're drinking. And it takes about 30 days to even that out. So when you stop drinking, you will feel irritated, sensitive, restless, less happy than when you're drinking. That is part of the healing. That is what alcohol has done for you. It's not because you're not drinking that you're less happy. So eating a cookie, a brownie, allowing yourself to have that treat without judgment, eating the ice cream, do whatever you want, I believe, in early sobriety, because you get that dopamine hit, you get that reward, and you are healing from your dopamine being suppressed and your stress hormone being spiked. It takes 30 days to even out your dopamine levels. And I will have women say to me, like, I'm just swapping one addiction for another. And you are not. You just aren't. But like, one mistake that I see so many women make, and I made it too, was if I'm not drinking, I am going to go on a huge health kick. I'm going to do Whole 30. I'm going to cut out carbs. I'm going to cut out whatever it is. And you're not drinking. And then you're miserable and it's too hard. And you're like, screw this, I'm going to have a drink. And you don't know whether you're actually miserable because you're not drinking or because you're starving. And you need comfort. And as you go on, you will have more energy. You will be more optimistic. You will have more interest, and you'll have time to dedicate to whatever you want to do in terms of health and wellness or intuitive eating or food, but not in the beginning because removing this addictive substance that is everywhere around you, that is hard enough.
So people going into January thinking, okay, I'm going to get sober, I'm going to lose the weight, I'm going to get to the gym, I'm going to do all the stuff. What would be your advice to them?
I would say in your first 2 weeks, removing alcohol is plenty. You will need more time alone. You will be tired. Alcohol significantly disrupts your sleep. So, a single glass of any kind of alcohol decreases your sleep quality by 24%. 2 glasses decreases it by 40%. You probably have not slept well in years. And I didn't realize that. And by the way, sober sleep, it is miraculous. Everybody says it. You will wake up and be like, oh my God, that blew my mind. For me, my first good night's sleep was 12 days in. So you're going to be tired. You're going to be craving. You're going to be irritated. I highly recommend like building a sober bubble, staying away from triggers, staying away from overwhelming responsibilities, staying away from drinking events, read books, watch shows, take long, slow walks, diffuse essential oils, meditate, go to bed early, all that kind of stuff. After 2 weeks, you'll probably be feeling a lot better. And, after 16 or 18 days is when I see people being like, oh my God, waking up not hating myself, that's pretty awesome. And my spouse told me that the light had come back into my eyes and that I was more calm and peaceful and less irritated and resentful. It happens slowly over time. But trust me, removing alcohol in and of itself, you will look better and feel better. You will be less bloated. Your eyes will be brighter. Your skin will be better. Your sleep will be better, which impacts every part of your life. You'll be less stressed. You'll be happier just by removing that one substance. And so many women, if they don't lose a single pound, have people come up to them and be like, oh my God, what are you doing? You look fantastic. And the only thing they did was stop drinking. So, in my mind, there is time to do all of that stuff. But if you do it right in the beginning, you're setting yourself up for failure. And setting yourself up for failure, by the way, in all of your goals. The other thing I would say, though, exercise, but setting realistic, achievable goals, not I didn't go 7 times this week and therefore I'm a terrible human being. Exercise is great because it helps get out some of that anxiety that we all carry around and is honestly a reason a lot of us drink to shut down our mind. Alcohol literally slows your brain function and your nervous system until it kicks it into overdrive when the alcohol leaves your system. You get that anxiety out. Fresh air is fantastic. You look at the trees, you look at nature, you're doing something to move your health forward. So I love exercise in a way where you don't judge yourself for not doing it. Routine is helpful. I do not like diets when you're stopping drinking. It's really unhelpful. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that having that all or nothing approach and kind of going through it all and then leading yourself up to failure is yeah. I mean, I remember one year saying to my husband, we started doing the dry January, and I was like, well, January is the most boring time of the year. Why are we giving up the only fun thing we have? So it is a case of bringing the fun in, isn't it? And exercise, completing that stress cycle and getting yourself doing something that you enjoy,
Yeah.
playing with the children, whether that be, like you say, going for a walk, going for, if you're close to the beach, go for a beach walk, or going for a nice country walk and stuff like that. And finding time to be with your family, or, more time because you're not, for us, it was always everything that we did was focused around the pubs. It's like, oh, we could just go there and we could stop there. Or let's go to the beach. Let's take a bottle of
Yeah.
wine. Let's do this. And let's get a drink while
Yeah.
we're involved with our children trying to do stuff. Because we'd be more fun if we're having a drink, but actually you're not, are you? So
Yeah.
it's trying to find the fun, isn't it, in movement.
And it's an experiment too. Like we all believe like, oh, well, I'm happier if I'm drinking. The beach is better with drinking. Cheese is better with wine. Experiment. Like, is it the alcohol or is this great anyway? And I just never gave myself a chance to do it. Or do I miss the drink, but I notice I play with my kids more, or I notice that I feel very safe driving home, or I notice that I have a great time and I can still be productive. There are a lot of benefits to not drinking, and it is normal to miss it and to mourn it and to wish you were drinking in the beginning. And cravings usually last only 20 minutes. Like literally time it when you're like, oh my God, I want to drink. Put a timer on, see how long it lasts. It may last a while in your first 7 days. It decreases significantly after that. It is easier to not drink than to try to moderate. And you won't know that until you try it.
What about that feeling of kind of flatness? If you kind of have an event, it's like an anniversary or a birthday party or New Year's Eve, hopefully, people might still be drinking then. But, to have an event, a big event, and kind of feel like they're meh, it's a bit flat because the
Yeah.
alcohol wasn't there. It's like my friend was missing. My best friend wasn't at the party. So
Yeah.
what would you kind of suggest of navigating around that?
Well, I have two thoughts about that. Number one, when my clients say to me, it will be no fun if I'm not drinking, always am kind of like, is it just not fun? That is a question. Like a lot of us go to things, whatever it is, and are like, okay, I'm going to drink and this is going to be great. Another thing that I ask about is if it is in your first month, I do suggest not going to some events if you can. It's a great time to bubble up, put on a fireplace, read a book, have some hot chocolate. Instead of going to parties and happy hours, go for a walk with your best friend or go out to brunch, have real conversations. You're shifting and you're experimenting. The other thing I would say is we've romanticized so many of our drinking events, and get real about what some of those were like. So, for example, New Year's Eve is coming up here. I remember when I was drinking, my husband and I, with two little kids, my mother-in-law was in town, got invited for basically a sleepover on New Year's Eve with all our couple friends that we've known since we were 20. I was so excited, right? I was like, this is going to be epic. We're going to be in our pajamas in the morning and having coffee and this great night and no kids. I did not remember going to bed. I did not make it to midnight. I have no idea if I just wandered off to the guest bedroom or if someone helped me. I woke up the next morning first feeling brutally ill and so embarrassed. My husband had no one to kiss at midnight. I mean, this idea that alcohol would make it more fun, what it did was I missed out on this event with these people I love that I had looked forward to for months. And just getting real about that, I also kind of tended to be a gray out, blackout drinker. So things that I was like, that was epic. I honestly don't know how much of that are my memories or things people told me. Do you know?
Mm, mm. Yeah, interesting you said we had a night with some friends that we was like, that was such a fun night. And actually, quite a while later, when I was like sober, I found a video that I'd videoed of us, and we are not funny. We're all laughing, but it's not funny.
Yeah.
It's kind of, like you say, you romanticize how fun things are, and then the next day we all had terrible hangovers. We don't remember the evening. And with the same group of friends, I had another evening with them. And we all do our own drinks, but I was going into the kitchen and pouring myself sparkling flavored water in a champagne glass. And not one person questioned what was in my glass. And I had, if not more fun, and I woke up the next day feeling,
Yeah.
energized and happy, So there was no questions asked because I was pouring my own drinks and it was in a champagne glass. I didn't have to explain that this
Yeah.
is what I'm doing or. Very interesting. What reasons do you think that people go dry January or just give up completely?
I mean, here's the thing. I think you can go alcohol free for any reason. And it does not have to be, oh my gosh, I'm worried about my alcohol consumption. And that is what I love is changing. So you can decide to go alcohol free for a health and wellness challenge. You can decide that you want to cut back after holiday indulgences. You can decide like, you know, fine, everybody's doing dry January. I'll do it too. You can decide I'm not going to drink this month to save money. You can decide for any reason at all and see how it feels and see what's good and see what you do with all of those hours that you spent for me on the couch with my glass of wine, watching shows that weren't even that interesting or that I don't remember and dragging in the morning. I remember pretty early in stopping drinking, 3 weeks in, I was meeting another friend I met online who didn't drink for breakfast. I drove across the bridge in Seattle, and Seattle's gorgeous, all bridges and mountains in the summer, come in the summer, because it's dark here at 4:30.
Is that an invite?
Yeah, totally. Seattle's amazing. We'll have to get together. But there were a universe of people out there running and biking and walking and talking, and the sun was out, and it was 7 a.m. Usually I was opening one eye at 10 a.m., being like, or I'm not sure I want to go to the yoga class I signed up for at 11. And I was like, oh my God, do they do this every day? Like, these people are crazy and they look so freaking happy and healthy. So just experience it.
Well, you mentioned before some of the mental and physical benefits of removing alcohol. Is there anything else that you want to add to that list of,
Yeah.
of,
I
of the
mean,
health and physical?
yes. So in all the ways alcohol is toxic to your body, it just is. And no judgment. We do things every single day of our lives that is not good for us. And we make those choices. The one thing I don't like now that I'm away from it is we are not informed of those negative health consequences. 70% of people believe that tobacco causes cancer. I'm shocked 30% don't believe that. That amazes me. But only 30% of people believe that alcohol causes cancer, and it does. It is a carcinogen. It has a causal relationship with 7 different kinds of cancer. 3 drinks a week for women increases your risk of breast cancer by 15%. Every drink over that increases it by another 10%. So not to be scary, but just be informed consumers, just know that. It is not good for your health. That idea of the French paradox, that study is completely false. And I have a whole podcast episode about why, with the science around it. Red wine is not good for your heart. The antioxidants do not weigh out the toxin you are putting into your body. So you will look better. Your face will be less red. You will be less bloated. You will have fewer broken blood vessels. Your eyes will be brighter. You will sleep better. It is good to not drink. Also, if you're concerned with weight loss and I'm totally anti-diet culture, but again, information is power. The minute you consume a drink, your body's ability to process any food or anything in your body drops from like 90% to 10% because your body needs to get rid of that toxin. And that's the priority. So many benefits.
So that education is motivation. So that's it, isn't it? Just know what you're doing, know what you're putting in your body. So that could, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and make your choice, but also you won't realize how different you feel until you take a break. for years did not know I was operating at this like crappy level. I mean, I kind of knew, right? Headaches and hangovers, I knew that. I'm like, oh, they're the worst. But just day to day, I got away from it and I was like, "Oh my god, is this how I would normally have felt every day?" And now when I get sick and, with a cold or a headache or just dragging, I'm like, "I am so glad I do not do this to myself on a regular basis anymore."
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember going on holiday and taking the usual paracetamols and ibuprofen, making sure they're all in there, and coming back with the boxes unopened. I was like, why do I even bother to take these with? We didn't even need a headache tablet the whole time we were there, because normally it's like get up in the morning on holiday, you pop in, pills
Yeah.
before you've even, had your coffee with your tablets, So having that, that awareness as well, that we don't need all these, because it's other things you're just putting in your body, the food that you eat to try and, oh, I'm feeling so rough, let me eat a bacon sandwich. That should help to settle my stomach, but actually it's just
Yes.
making you feel worse. So you just layer in all these chemicals and all this bad stuff on top. So what do you think are some other challenges that women are facing or encountering when they're trying to break free from alcohol or take a break from alcohol?
Mhm. A couple different things. A lot of them are limiting beliefs that we have about life without alcohol. So when I stopped drinking, everyone I knew drank. I did not know a single person who did not drink, or definitely did not know anyone who used to love drinking like I did, who stopped and said it was better on the other side and that life was still fun and it was still okay. So I thought if I stopped drinking, I would be bored, I would be boring, I would spend my life craving and feeling deprived. I thought that I wouldn't be able to go to all the parties with my friends. I worried that people would think I had a quote unquote problem with alcohol if I stopped, which is hysterical because I would drink a lot at business functions and then overshare or trip on my way back from the dinner. I mean, insane that I thought that drinking was helping my career and that not drinking would sabotage it. I didn't know if my husband and I would connect at the right level. I didn't know how I'd relax, like all these fears. So I think that I'm not alone in worrying about what will change in my life if I stop drinking because it was so tied to my identity. That's why I love the incremental approach, like just saying, I'm doing 100 days. That let me ease into it. That let my husband ease into it. That let my friends ease into it. So we could all see, oh, we can still go on dates and we can still get together and you can still go on vacation. And it's good. And yes, of course, you're going to miss when people serve the first glass of wine at a restaurant. You're going to be like, oh my God, I used to love that. And then you shift and say, I'm not doing that right now. So I'm going to order something else. And maybe I'll actually order dessert because I never used to do that. The quote unquote, I take my calories in wine. And you'll notice that you're more present with your husband or you know how much to pay the babysitter. I can't tell you how much I overpaid because I was terrified of underpaying and trying to act like I wasn't drunk with the babysitter. I mean, all of these, I call it a death of a thousand cuts. For me, nothing big happened. No one told me I needed to stop drinking. But the 3 a.m. wake ups, the inner turmoil, the overthinking, the overcompensating, having that removed from my life, it was beautiful. The other thing is it's all around you. You have a bad day, you post it on a social network, all the other moms are gonna be like, "Oh, happy hour. You need wine now." And you don't need wine now. You need a break, you need help, you need comfort, you need sympathy. You don't need to knock yourself unconscious with a substance that slows your brain activity.
Interesting, because we moved house. It was when I started drinking again, was when I moved house. And you talking about that self-identifying. I know I thought like that I can drink intuitively. If I move, no one knows that me. I'm away from all my drinky friends that used to encourage me that I would drink with. And now if I drink, I will make new friends and I'll be sociable and I'll have all these new friendship groups. But it didn't work. It didn't, I was just ending up drinking at home. And it's like I wasn't socializing with anyone. It didn't make me meet any more friends. then a lot of people I've met don't actually drink here. So it was good to stop because it didn't change anything. So in my head, I thought, I'm going to be sociable, I'm going to be fun, I'm going to be back to that person that I was all drinky and fun, and that fantasy was there, but it soon went away again, thank goodness. So yeah, having that realization. How can people get in touch with you if they want to know more about what you have to offer?
Yeah, thank you so much. The best way to get in touch with me is to go to my website, which is hellosomedaycoaching.com. If you're doing dry January or listening to this later and doing dry July, sober October, or just any health kick, I have a completely free guide that you can have sent right to your email inbox called 30 Tips for Your First Month Alcohol Free. And it will really help you know what to expect and what to do on day 5 and day 16. And when you get to the end of the month, how to set yourself up for success. I also have a course that is opening enrollment right now for dry January. So it is called the Sobriety Starter Kit. It is built for busy women. It is my complete sober coaching framework that I work with my private coaching clients, designed to take you from day 1 to 100 to 6 months and beyond. And there's a course community. It's really lovely to do this with other people who get it, who are like you. The women are working moms, they're successful, and they're struggling with this thing that they don't talk to their friends about. And you can listen to my podcast. It's called the Hello Someday podcast for sober curious women. Anywhere you're listening to this podcast, you can find it. And I've got great episodes on everything. I've got 200 episodes, but also if you're listening now, I've got episodes on, how to make New Year's resolutions stick, kind of do this, not that. Episodes on dry January with a bunch of other women and coaches with all our best tips and tricks and a whole lot more.
Awesome. It sounds amazing. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all of your amazing insights into sobriety and how people can, start their journey.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Secrets in the Powder Room. I hope you found this podcast insightful, and all links to Casey are in the show notes. And if you want to connect with me, you can do on the links provided, or my website is louisebryant.coach. You have access to my free self-care calls, as I believe the healing journey starts with you and self-compassion. Self-care should be non-negotiable. Thanks again for tuning in, and remember, stay safe and take care of yourself.